So this is going to be the longer version of this. So I didn't get to finish all the rounds I wanted to do. I guess just because of laziness, I just got distracted. But I'm glad I kind of gave myself time instead of rushing through, because I've already changed some of these slides around. They sound a little bit better. And this is kind of the longer one because it's with all this chaos with like the vaccines and everything. If the biological ability if it's better for your body to develop natural immunity, then it'll be best for your body to be in the healthiest condition, which means we're going to start encouraging more exercise. But the entire point of my work is that all exercise science today is misguided and needs to be found on new principles. And so that's what somatic engineering is like trying to be. I got some more slides in it here this time that I'll try to make for the 1 minute, but this is just like the longer version just to kind of talk about it, because I do believe this is very serious and actual. I think the evidence will speak for itself. So we're talking about exercise signal control. We're talking about cell signaling with exercise, and we'll get it like your body has. We'll get into all that, I guess, later. I can't get ahead of myself because I should just talk about what's on the screen. This always happens. All right. So this is the problem set. How do you use your own motion from the somatic nervous system, defined in space and time with the laws of biophysics, in order to facilitate the development of the physiology you want, aesthetically, internal physiology, health focused, or performance focused? So I kind of just put this together because like I was trying to focus on the big three, which is aesthetics, which is like how your body looks, health, which is like medical and like just functionality, and performance for sports related tasks, and like just being better at things than like above and beyond on health, or in some instances you can compromise health for performance or aesthetics. So that's like why they could all be differentiated. And so how you do this with exercise, you're able to do this because of a dogmatic principle that your body operates with different elements, and it uses like resources in order to move, and in order to recover those resources, other resources are needed, and it's a continual supply of resource management is essentially your body, and that's physiology, that's biophysics. It's like because you could think of it as also like like nutrition economics, how things like leave and go in, because doesn't have to be too complicated with the whole biophysics term. Like you don't have to understand all the math to understand the principle that it's a supply and demand chain, from nutrition to physiology, and through exercise we can increase certain demand naturally, and increase the development of tissue, and like healthy tissue and healthy ability of tissue. And so this is important it's important to understand that not all fitness practices and fitness marketed products today do what they intend to do or say what they could do, because not all exercise is healthy exercise. Some of it is just a physical and mental challenge, which is perfectly okay to take. But if you want long-term physical health and physical fitness, it's not just about like pushing yourself all the time. It's about facilitating the development of nutrition through your body. And so like I try to talk about this more, like, so this is what I call somatic engineering, because all this is really exercise engineering, but I'm calling my version of it somatic engineering. So then if there's anything wrong with what I'm saying, you can just say, well, that's just my version of exercise engineering, and that there's a bigger principle involved, because this is really supposed to be a science, and it's not, and I guess I'm just the person to bring it up. And so I was entering this competition, and the host to like, the money would have been nice, but I can't expect it anymore. But definitely to kickstart this and kind of get going with it. because, and I'm not trying to sell anything right now, I'm just trying to explain, like, I think that we all need to understand more about our bodies, and that way we can understand more about these health sciences that are coming out, and it's going to be imperative. People are going to start recommending exercise. It's the best kind of medicine. And so the kind of exercise that we do, though, if everyone just focuses on HIIT training or boot camp style, or just sweating their asses off in order to get healthy, like, they can make everything worse. There's much easier ways to do it. It doesn't, like, there's math. It's simple math on, like, how to get this going. And we've overcomplicated everything with marketing. But this needs to be properly addressed, because it is a public health issue, and especially now in the time of COVID, it is for all people and nations a national security issue. How healthy can your people be? There's been a history of group fitness for population health since the 1800s, started in Europe. So it might become necessary now again, and we just have to make sure that we get proper answers and proper information and no misguiding, because just like I think that this health crisis has been very mismanaged with their marketing and lackadaisical rhetoric. That I've been trying to take this very seriously, and because fitness has always been like that. Maybe it's related. And so yeah, we're trying to facilitate the development of the physiology you want. So, like, how you develop aesthetic physiology, like how do you lose weight or how do you build muscle? It's physiology, no matter what that is. And it's not in, like, motivation is a part of going, but it is physiology. It is physiology and physics that move the muscle and move the fat and move the tissue. And understanding how those things work together on a biological level helps you apply the mathematics to physics. And that's what physics is supposed to be. So this is like somatic engineering, you feel me? And so yeah, and there's other things you can do aesthetically where it's like, since you understand that nerves and muscles will retain their shape after nerves retain muscle patterns and muscles retain their shape after a longest period of time, and you can reshape bones for a limited amount, but you can. So aesthetically, by having the right kind of muscle control and positioning control, you can also shape your body in the ways you want, which could help with weight loss as well. Internal physiology, health focus. So it's like this COVID stuff. We're talking about, like, getting oxygen to the right cells. It's interesting because, like, they think the lactic or the lactate I think it's a lactate shuttle or lactic shuttle, I don't know, the one, yeah, I'm close, but it might, like, okay, so we're trying to understand how the body uses all properties in order to grow. That includes, like, cancer research. And so, like, one of the things that I've, in a very superficial look, has seen is that when people have poor oxygen supply to cells, then they're more likely to develop cancer. And so if we are able to write the exercise program that helps with the most capillary density, local or systemic, or how we need it, we could at least help push back cancer. Maybe that's something. There's a lot of stuff. There's plenty of stuff you could do with, like, Alzheimer's or, like, degenerative disease. I don't know to what extent and how preventive it has to be, like how early onset it has to be. But these are things that could be a possibility. That, like, I think now it's like, if you discover it, you're able to see the signs of Alzheimer's in, like, your 40s and 50s if you're going to get it, like, 20 years later. So is there anything we can do with our oxygen supply and with these nutrients and with certain kinds of activation techniques to facilitate as much cellular fortitude, integrity, much cellular integrity as we can, so that way when the time comes, it's like it's harder for it to chip away at the walls, and you get a better end of life. Performance focus, obviously sports. Like, there's a lot we could do to get things going. It's pretty amazing. Like, one of the things that's performance focused, because it doesn't really fit in these other two categories, is the concept of time dilation. So if you're able to physiologically process nutrition or nutrients, or it's not how it's perceptually perceived. If you're able to process the chemicals your body needs in order to create action, which are nutrients, then you will be able to process time at a faster rate. And so as things happen very quickly, in, like I say, and this has happened to me in a sports scenario, you will be able to move with more thought, with more forethought. You'll have more room for forethought as you continue to move. It's really interesting because it feels like time is slowing down, like you're able to perceive everyone's motion a little bit better for like a half second, and your motion is able to adjust and move. And then everything like doesn't necessarily speed back up, but it's like you just process things better. As you get more tired, things speed up really quick. It's interesting. So these are the topics I try to talk about because these are all the differentiations that I was able to think about on the fly for this competition. And like I said, like if I wasn't just being lazy about it, I could have put more work into this stuff and at least had something to show than what I'm going to, because it's kind of just embarrassing. So yeah, this is the theory crafting. So this is the somatic engineering theory crafting program for best features for the body that increase health with capillary density, which is, it does increase muscle size and exclamation mark, so that way people don't get confused on that. Because like it doesn't that's not to say that increasing muscle size does not increase capillary density. I'm just saying that the techniques used to increase capillary density are not the same as the techniques we use to increase muscle size specifically. These techniques to increase capillary density will increase muscle size slightly. It'll like could tone it up really. It's more of like those kind of actions that'll be more what people consider toning than it will be like a bodybuilder, because people will always attribute to increasing in muscle size as bodybuilding proportions when that also includes toning, because we're trying to like it's I guess it's not we're changing the muscle shape for sure, but we're making it more capable, increasing capillary density. And that's from like, if you watch the other videos, it's essentially like patterned muscle confusion is the quickest way to explain it, if you can make that make sense. Because you just have to know the fundamentals of muscle confusion, and then you can understand, oh, I could just pattern that time and space. That works. Engineering. Enhanced stability for material exchange between capillaries and their respective tissue environments. And that's called endothelial, which is endo, inside, thelial, which is like skin, like this is your ectothelium, I think. So endothelium is your, don't quote me on that. Endothelium is definitely your blood vessels though. And so the exchange between the capillaries and their environments, because you know cells and tissues are still within fluid, so like it comes out of the capillaries into the environmental fluid, then into that fluid into the cell. So it's a very interesting process, you know, but we're trying to increase the exchange between the capillaries and the tissue environments specifically, so that way the cells have more to operate with, and then once they have enough material and the demand, they make improvements with the right kind of rest and work ratios, so that way there's time, because you can't make improvements while the shit's running. Like, I'll try my best not to cuss so much, but you can't make improvements while everything's running. Like, you gotta stop, hold up, rest, relax, put weight on other people's load, recover, put it back. Increase mitochondrial density, which is not the same as increasing muscle size nor atrophy, because people think like too much cardio will atrophy your muscles or shrink your muscles. Too much, sure, but not to an extent where you need to be concerned about it. Unless you are, not even if you're an avid bodybuilder, you still need good mitochondrial density. You need decent mitochondrial density just for health purposes. Like, you need, as far as everyone in probably the planet Earth is concerned right now, everyone can use a little bit of mitochondrial density. But, you know, I'm just trying to get people not to worry about, like, the muscle size and shape and aesthetic development too much, because we're talking about, like, physiological principles for sure. And it was hard to make that all work in a minute. So, bonus effect for clever tissue development with additional program features, yeah, because, like, if you know how to, like, design this right, you could design this increased capillary density, all of these things for COVID specialty while you're also planning to play for a sport, or like wanting to do this for weight loss, or like have all these other things. You can do both at the same time, but you can make sure you get this COVID buffer, and then we add in elements that'll help with that. And of course, there's always the other option where you focus on the other one and add in elements that'll help with this COVID stuff. It's just different ways you could do it. But right here, too many additional program features can make the program confusing or mentally cumbersome, and we're covering the basics because it was just 1 minute. So this is the ventilator threshold training. This looks complex. What's not in this slide will be in another slide later on. It has a 1-to-2 work rest ratio, because you work up to VT2, you rest down to VT1. So it's essentially heart rate training where your body is. So what the important thing here to understand is that VT2, your body is not able to use oxygen. It is using oxygen to its maximum rate and is no longer able to use oxygen anymore. Like, if that makes sense. It is a maximum capacity for oxygen use to replace ATP. It doesn't matter how much harder you breathe at VT2, you're there. You're already there. So you're just working with what you got, and then it's about your body's ability to use the anaerobic processes. And I might get this. This might not be entirely correct, because as we know, we're building. There's always a little bit of previous information we're building on, and we need to understand the true basics of this physiology. But the idea is, and this was even in not in American Council on Exercise's personal trainer manual, but in their essentials for professionals, it talks about ventilator threshold training, and it was a very small study, but at 100% success rate, which goes to show that the theory that if we just stress these systems specifically, which is already a principle of exercise science, we get a targeted response, and if we're just know what we're trying to target, we'll get better responses. And so this is just walk at 2 to 3 miles an hour. The idea is you walk at like 3.3 miles an hour because it's a very high speed, and we're trying to keep our oxygen consumption up, and we're working up to the ability where we're no longer, our body is like, all right, that's a limit for our oxygen, and then we give it a break so it can process everything it has. So we go 2 minutes to start, and then like your heart rate doesn't have to get to 160 right away. It can be lower. That was the original. I think that was my original twist on this philosophy, if I remember it right. Because this is like, I don't even know if this is correct from the other side. This is just from memory, really. So I might have done it where, I think I remember, like, you don't want your heart rate to be up too high, or maybe you do. I don't know what you want it to be, but I was doing this training when I first started, and after my 2 minute run, my heart rate would be at like 140, 150. And so, but I would leave it there, and then by the end of my run, because you do so many cycles, like the last 2 or 3 cycles, my heart rate would be at the VT2 threshold. So it's like that shows an obvious track of building up to ventilator threshold with keeping the workload the same. And so with that standard workload and letting your heart work up to ventilator threshold, then I'm going to try and go to a blank screen so I can talk about this. Or, I'll leave it here. Alex Cumberson. There we go. So, yeah, then you're having your heart and you're having your body work up to its oxygen limit at ventilator threshold too, with the same load. And I think that helps. So like not every single round has to keep that heart rate at 160. So you're not always working your way up there right now. We're working our way up there by the end of the set. And that's an important thing to clarify. I think that's why I wanted to take this time to clarify that, because like I'm trying to be on it about this stuff and being specific about it, because it'll get misinterpreted and misremembered and reused. But this is like the basic program I did, just so that way you have a general outline of stuff to do. To get time dilation, this was part 1 of that, and we'll get into part 2 maybe another time. Undulated, so this looks cumbersome, but what we're saying here is we're getting on a treadmill, which is first part is the program, the second part is progression. So we're getting on a treadmill, we're walking at a over 2 mile an hour pace, because that's what people walk at, and we're going up to 7.5. We go up to 7.5 because of this Livestrong study for best running practices associated with longevity. From what I remember of it, and this was like 2016, I think 2015 maybe. I just read this study, and it said like over 20 miles starts to drift under 20, so it had a natural parabellum curve. 20 miles at an 8-minute mile, 7.5 miles per hour was the peak of longevity, which is just interesting to know from this one study. It's like people that ran over 20 miles, like around 25 miles, started to look like people who had the same like life expectancy as people who ran like 17 miles theoretically. I'm not sure if that's with a specific altitude and magnitudes. I do remember the 20 miles and the 7.5, because that's an 8-minute mile, and I remember that being like important for like for health, for PE. Like they said, you want to run an 8-minute mile for best health, and it's like, so maybe we've already had these sciences and then we've over-marketed, which I think we have. I think this kind of proves even later on. And I'm yelling too much all around this. We're not testing VT capacity or building mitochondrial density. And then neuromuscular activation. So this is building capillary density. The first step is building mitochondrial density, because the mitochondria is what process the oxygen. And so in order for yourself to improve from one workout to another, like for that heart rate to stay down, like say you did 2 minutes for 10 cycles, or 2 minutes for 40 for 10 cycles, and then by the last 10 minutes of your workout, your heart rate started going up, and then after 2 weeks of training, it took to your heart rate doesn't go up past 150 the entire training for 2 minutes and such, then you would know that your mitochondrial density has increased substantially, or your body's ability to process oxygen, probably both. And that's that's what this is, like mitochondrial density, and it builds endothelial efficiency, which is the ability of material exchange between capillaries and their respective tissue environments. Now we're getting into part 2, the neuromuscular activation. Practicing motor skills, especially with low dexterity and strength, will activate dormant pathways towards muscle fibers and their neural connections. So you never knew how to walk, you had to learn. You had your biology that was designed to be in that direction, to help you learn how to walk, but you still had to learn how to walk. You had to practice. Throw a ball, click a button, type on the keyboard, pick up the phone. You had to practice. It takes coordination. And every muscle fiber has one nerve attached to it. And so besides like the control aspect, let's talk about the energy aspect of it. So you have to have a lot of nutrition going from every muscle fiber and every nerve in order to create different actions. And so that's why you actually get tired out, is because you're not able to deliver oxygen to those areas on certain movements. And if you have poor joint mechanics or poor connecting tissues, or something that has caused an injury, that's why that pain is there. Besides just getting worn out, you just have the pain. And you could have scarred tissue as well that prevents you from really getting the energy you need in the right places, or wearing out too fast. And so it also has to do with pooling and stuff, and it can get complicated. This is why it's important to understand physiology first in order to understand how to train the human body, or how to understand how to train others. it should be the first aspect of all training programs. And since it's not, that's why I'm here. So practicing and improving motor skills increases the local density of capillaries in order to increase blood flow quality to that area for the muscle and the nerves. So your bicep has just one of your bicep muscles, your bicep from bicep no. That's abdominis rectus. See, I'm terrible with names. Oh no. Bicep humerus. It's not a bad shot. I know it's wrong, but it's not a bad shot. Because the other one's the brachialis. Is the one I'm thinking of. It's like, or is it just, no, because Latin names. Anyways, your arm bicep, because you have a hamstring bicep, and you have, I guess, we'll just stick with those two for right now, has 500,000 fibers in it. Anyways, your calf, your gastrocnemius, the biggest muscle in your calf, has 1 million muscle fibers, which also means it has 1 million nerves. So that's 2 million cells that your body has to do just to one muscle in your calves. That's 1 million nerves or cells your body has to get blood flow to in just your bicep. But so your body doesn't want to like have to commit things to it where it doesn't need to, and so if it remains unactivated or underactivated, then it will commit less nutrition to there, and it will have less capillary facilitation and less capillary ability. And so practicing things you're bad at, practicing skills that are hard, helps improve the blood flow to that area and your body's ability to use nutrition and keep your body healthy. It's like, it's such a perpetual effect. And so with COVID, this is important to know, because if because my theory is that, like, if you increase the capillary density, then when you have all this inflammation, like if you increase your capillary density around your chest specifically, then while you have chest inflammation, I know it's like pneumonia, but you still might have better blood flow to the entire area around it, like just from everything that's been going on, like from your practicing of exercise. And it may be more important to do that on a full body aspect. And your body, you should know that your body uses less nutrition the more fit it gets. Your cells get more, get more efficient. Your cells get more efficient at using the resources available as they get stronger. So at first it's going to have this high energy demand, but then after a while your body's going to get used to it. And I think that takes a couple of years, to be honest. Like that's why I give people a 3-year quote for your body. Like, hey, we're going to think about the next 3 years for training. And so like bulletproof hamstrings, I think that's just like a good new approach. I think it's needed for a bunch of different reasons. I probably shouldn't have highlighted that first, because it's really just adding variation. Like, so one thing I like to do, instead of just normal push-ups, just changing the angles on your push-ups on every rep. Even if you rest your body on the ground and push yourself off the ground, like that's just more activation. You're doing it yourself a favor by practicing relaxation and then reactivation. And so it's a different way to train, and that's great for performance, aesthetics, and health. Like, yeah, there's a lot. That's why I was trying to highlight this. I was like, yeah, see, it's not just all my stuff. Like, you can use other guys too. Like, you can use all this basketball training that's been blowing up on social media. Like, try it. Like, get good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just put in the effort, and you'll at the least get capillary density, and it'll help you not get COVID. And then maybe you can throw the ball around a little more. Even if you like can't make a shot, just practicing, just like throwing the ball towards the hoop for like a half an hour once a week would still give you a benefit. Like, would facilitate capillary density and shit. Like, you don't have to make a single shot, just throw it up. Like, yeah. And like, here's all this talking about the blood flow. Yeah, how it's controlled, right, by metabolic demands, and it, like, these titles just completely wrap it up. Muscle blood flow increases with oxidative capacity. Motor unit recruitment promotes capillary perfusion, which is like That's what we're talking about with learning sports. Vasodilation ascends the resistance network as metabolic demand increases. I don't remember that last one. Like, I remember it gets technical, but it appears that it is more related to oxidative capacity, which is like part of part 1, which is like the ventilatory threshold training. That's that oxidative capacity, because we're talking about oxygen and the ability of the body to use oxygen, which is what that ventilatory threshold is literally designed to do, is specifically target the use of oxygen to its maximum capacity, not VO2 max. Ventilatory threshold training. You just gotta stop at VT2. And that's like part of it, I think, or like we're overtraining, because like you have to train hard, just not to the extreme. Yeah, you gotta put in the work in order to learn. It's just what it is. It's how the body's designed. Alright, so this one I just recently rewrote. Improving cardio is not about maximum heart rate. It's common to associate cardio with any training that increases your heart rate. This is false. Cardio in the fitness sense is specifically training that aims to increase your cardio abilities. So I'm trying to break this down on a philosophical level. Like, okay, so when we say we are cardio training, or when we say any kind of training, resistance training, strength training, power training, sports training, health training, that's we're trying to improve those words' abilities: strength ability, performance ability, health ability. That's the focus. And so in this sense, cardio, we're talking about the ability of oxygen to get your muscles and nerves. Is that all we're talking about with cardio? Not necessarily, but it's the most common way to think about it. And I think it's the best way to just keep it as it is, because like if you get really technical with cardiovascular training, you open it up to more things. But it's just, this keeps it simple, I think, and we're going to keep it here. So we're going to talk about oxygen to your muscles and nerves. Heart rate increases for numerous reasons. This is also philosophy. Like, we're arguing about semantics here, and we are arguing about semantics. That's the point. Heart rate increases for numerous reasons, including adrenaline without activity. Therefore, it cannot be the standard for what is and is not technically cardio training. And this is important for trainers to understand. Like, just because you're like, oh, we got our heart rate up, so that's good cardio. Don't stop saying that. This is why we're getting into semantics, because when your client gets their heart rate up, it's not necessarily cardio training. You feel me? Like, there's a lot of stuff. You could be stroking an injury, like you could be flaring things up. So here's the biology of cardio training. Your body uses oxygen as a nutrient to generate ATP in mitochondria. ATP, if you don't know, is how the body creates calories. It creates from that material compound, ATP. Mitochondria, and I'd speak on chemicals like everything is a chemical. You feel me? Like, it's all elemental. Mitochondria are found in all living cells and tissues. Cardiovascular training, cardio by its name, aims to improve the ability of the cardiovascular system to exchange nutrients with the cells and tissue around it. So what the ventilatory threshold training aims to do is use oxygen as the standard for cardiovascular training. Because if your body is able to deliver oxygen to your tissues, specifically nerves and muscles, as is needed, then we can expect that your body has good delivery systems to most organs and cells and tissues in the body, because that's a big part of your body. And if they do not, I think it'd become more obvious, And so if we improve that ability with the ventilatory threshold training, then we are improving cardiovascular ability. We are improving the cellular and tissue nutrient exchange that is promoted by It's promoted by a finite repeated stress via load of exchange, which is created by biological demand and exercise. That's again saying that we have to stress the system so we come up to maximum oxygen consumption, not just like general stress, but we're talking about a specific physical engineering type of stress via load of exchange. So that's what we're doing with exercises. We're demanding more ATP, so we're creating these exchanges in these biochemical processes, and the load of that, which is what raises your heart rate up to ventilator threshold 2, is related. To a degree, I'm not sure because I'm getting really tired right now. Yeah, everything practices because it's just engineering, self-taught engineering. It's crazy. That's life. Understanding ventilatory thresholds. So this is like where a lot of these zones come from. Like people, especially if you're above the age of 30, you've probably heard of this zone training before. If you're under the age, you've probably heard it more about stuff like this on Orange Theory on this next slide. So this is just trying to explain that ventilatory threshold 1, oxygen, lactate, and saccharides which are carbohydrates, become the dominant motion nutrients. This is what we use to replace ATP. VT2, oxygen delivery becomes too slow for demand. Lactate and saccharides, carbohydrates, become dominant motion nutrients. So this is anaerobic glycolysis. This is lactate, which your body uses as a fuel source, and if there's too much, it becomes that abundance of lactic acid. So your body has to get used to shuttling things across as well. There's a lot going on in there. And so I'm not really sure the LT one's real. It's associated with lactic thresholds, but I didn't really look into it too much. I don't think that those have any significant other than being relational to the ventilatory thresholds. I don't think that they're by themselves a threshold. At least for this graph specifically, there might be lactic thresholds where biophysical systems change their operations based on the amount of lactic acid in the system, because it's kind of what we're talking about here. But as far as these ones go, I didn't read the study too much. I've been real lazy. But I'm pretty sure that these are just associated with the ventilatory thresholds. So don't spend too much time thinking about these lactic thresholds as oh, this is also part of it. Lactic thresholds are very important, I believe. But how are those defined? I'm not entirely sure. These ventilatory thresholds are dealing with oxygen, so it's much more simple to define. But as you see from this graph, it says, it's trying to say 50% VO2 max, 100% VO2 max. That's one word, not divided. It's not like VO2 max, VT2. It's not read like that. It's read, still this graph isn't the most clear. You know what I mean? But so the idea on this is throughout the ages, we've added personal touches to them, personal marketing, and this is an example of the different marketing. The fat burning zone, for real, that's not necessarily the right way to think about how to burn fat. Is just get your heart rate into this low energy zone, because the same way as the capillary density training is the best fat burning practices. It's not necessarily getting your heart rate to this zone. It's more about keeping things active and well fed. And it's weight control zone, are they talking about resistance weight control, or are they talking about overweight? You see, it's this stuff ain't clear. Aerobic zone, so then what are we doing down here? We're wasting time. Anaerobic zone, it's just unclear. Here, this one says the training zone. I've seen this a lot. Or the fat burning zone. This will be highlighted in the zone 2. And it's it's just very unclear. I know they try to explain it all here, but it's it's what we're trying to explain here, these ventilatory thresholds right here. And I think here ventilatory threshold 1 is the blue line, ventilatory threshold 2 is purple line. Yeah, it's got to be a purple line. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's how that works. So they're saying the training zone is in between this, and that's so then theoretically I'm still talking about the same thing, oxygen consumption. But instead of, this is what that ACE study in their supplemental book, not in their training manual, showed, was that if you train by the lines, by the blue line and by the purple line, you'll have faster increases in cardiorespiratory training than you will in this training zone. We're trying to hit it in the middle. And that's great engineering sciences. And so here's the most popular one, is Orange Theory. These guys, everyone knows about Orange Theory. But here, so the percentages are not what's wrong. It's just what they're calling it. So orange effect, uncomfortable. That's where we want to be. That's pretty much what they're trying to get to, is that VT2 point on this orange effect. And then they're trying to go back down to light activity or warm up, because that comes back to VT1, and then back up, and then, but it's just like they just try to remarket it and rebrand it their own kind of way. Which, I mean, when they first came out with this, I said props to them, because it was the best kind of cardio training out there. Because I know CrossFit at the time was saying no long distance training, and I was like, excuse me. And this one's at least like, we'll try it, but then we'll do it in like intervals. And I'm like, all right, that's better. And I got that CrossFit doesn't do long distance training from an email from the founder of CrossFit that he shared in the magazine interview. But I know things have probably changed. So like this is I had all this again because it's like it ties into the improving the cardio. It's not about max heart rate. It's about these ventilated threshold trainings. It's about getting that oxygen consumption. Your body used to oxygen consumption, really. And just repeating it over and over and over again. And that's mentally exhausting, is the repetition part. That's where you need your motivation. It's not about getting your heart rate up and being motivated. It's about repetition, staying disciplined and motivated to keep going, or having people help you with that. There's another one that I wrote recently. And I'll show you another one that I wrote like intermediately, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm probably going to rewrite this one. Or the other one. This one I'm kind of happy with. I wrote this more recently. So materials nutrition equals greater health outcomes. Current model, 494 calorie model. So a lot of people are familiar with this. If you're taking a nutrition class, or if you're into nutrition, this is how they calculate calories. It's by grams of carbohydrates, by grams of fat, by grams of protein. And they have an associated number with them, even though that this number ranges very drastically. And you add up all your calories to lose weight or gain muscle, and that's not what it is. And like the idea of the calorie model, like the 494 rule, was developed in the late 1800s, early 1900s, turn of the century, from like calo bombing, and the calorie model really came up during when people were trying to lose weight, during like the 80s and the 90s. We had this obesity epidemic. And it became the dominant nutrition model. And the calorie model is just like, it's not proper science. It's not. You're not the sun, so we're not going to measure you in heat. We're going to measure you by materials, because that's what helps replace your body and keeps you healthy. So you keep the grams, take away the math, and you expand nutrition to include all the elements that promote health and performance. Blah, blah, blah. Materials nutrition includes oxygen, water, vitamins, minerals, ergonomic supplements, cytochemicals, zoonutrients, etc. So it's like I'm trying to be all-encompassing on all chemicals, and this includes like poisons and stuff, like real like steroids, but we don't have to get into that, because this also includes pharmaceuticals, for getting real down to it. And so it's like, because we're just trying to keep the body up and like healthy. And so how do these chemicals interact with the body? That's materials nutrition. Material control, food control equals concentration control. Blood concentration of nutrients is based on the amount and availability of nutrients in the food. Nutrition availability from food is called bioavailability. It's just because I understand it as bioavailability, so it's much simpler for me to say that. So if you hear that, no, that's like the nutrition availability from food, because you poop some out, and that's like nutrition that's not available, even though some of that still might have like healthy effects, like fiber. But it's easier to understand personal health and nutrition when fiber has no calories. When a person has the influence of elements and materials in your food and on your body beyond calories in and calories out, like fiber. We just need to focus on materials. We don't need to focus on calories. We're overcomplicating it by trying to simplify it. It's funny. And so my example of this, when they use on whey protein bottles, when they use the word isolate that on the label, it has 35 to 60% less bioavailability. It might be 40 to 65%, or it might be 40 to 55%. It might be 45 to 55%. It's about halfway. And I think the range is correct from what I read. But on a book about nutrition that I lost so long ago. It was such a good book. And it was not supposed to be intended for U.S. sale. I thought it was interesting. because like freedom of speech, what the heck. This makes whey protein shakes easier to drink for the lactose intolerant though, so that's like why isolate is nice. But again, 40 grams, you get 20 grams. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's cut in half, basically. Not all, like, it might be more, it might be less, so you don't even know. But, like I said, it's better than having lactose intolerant reactions and still getting whey protein. Like, you just might have to spend a little bit extra money, because you might have to be using a little bit more protein, but it might be simpler than what else you're going on, and you might be able to afford it, so, like, shoot, why not? So I'm not trying to, like, hate on it, for sure. And this is important because energy is material. This next slide right here. Energy, what people know as calories, is from a material compound called adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine is an organic compound. So just think of that as like the base. Attach 3 phosphate togethers, put it on adenosine, you get ATP. So it's got like this tail that has 3 phosphates on it. And so when the phosphate branch breaks, because the phosphate branches are connected by like atomic energy. I'm not sure what kind of energy specifically on that chemistry side, but energy is connecting those phosphate together. And when they break, they release heat, and they allow mechanical energy to act. And it's really fucking crazy. Because it allows, I know I said I was going to stop cussing, but this stuff is actually like, do you, like, that's, I'm not even, like, I can wrap my head around it. I understand the logic behind it, but at the same time, it's just amazing to think that microscopic phosphate, it's not even the chemical itself, but its connection to another one has this energy between it, and that when those two parts separate, that the energy is transferred through the compound into the larger molecule that is the structure attached to the cell wall outside of the cell nucleus, that is the cell that is part of the larger like environment, because there's all this fluid around the cell that is part of the tissue, that is part of the organ, that is part of the organ system, that is you. It creates all the action. All those phosphate bonds being broken are how you speak, think, move, breathe. Maybe not think. Maybe think. I don't know how much ATP is used when you're thinking or on. Yeah. Because I know it's a lot of, I don't know. I've been lazy. I've been out of study. But that's the idea, is slowly getting back into it. Energy and cell health is recovered by materials. Yes, so this is what nutrition means. Carbohydrates, fats, oxygen, and lactase, I think that's right. I don't know, it looks wrong. Are all materials cells use to restore the phosphate bonds and ATP, which keeps us moving and alive and our heart beating. Adipose tissue, fat cells can be seen as just stored materials. Like, we don't have to think about stored calories and all this, just it's stored materials. So, okay, so what kind of materials and how do we move those materials? Cells and tissues strengthen their physical beings with materials. That's important. Carbs, fats, proteins, water, vitamins, and minerals are all important for cells and tissues to strengthen their physical well-being. That's why they are literally nutrients. That is why they're called nutrition. That's why they're defined. And really, especially with vitamins and minerals, we've only known about them for like 100 years. So like, we're really just huffing our own glue. So materials should be better than calories, and I don't understand why we continue to push calories, except for the fact that we've just tried to do it and people keep pushing it. It's like opioids. So this is what I didn't get to get to. Some of these, I got to one more down the line, but this was the list. History of measurement and exercise science. Like calories, it's just not very concise. Professional fitness certifications analysis, like, man, just none of them are satisfactory to create professional trainers in the ways that people view a professional of any other profession, if that makes sense. Like how you become an electrician, a nurse, like anything. It's like, except for like a server, pretty much personal trainers and serving and like waiting are seen as the same thing. Like you're just kind of working for tips. I really feel that as a waiter. Construct ecological and external validity review. So construct validity is like the elements that you make up the thing. Ecological is like how well it relates to the real world, and external is how well it's like repeatable, I think. See, I gotta refresh this stuff all the time, or otherwise you just forget. That's natural. And like, so I'm not expecting, in the same way, like no one's a professional on this yet, so let's just try to move forward with this and like work on it. That's the idea. 6 biophysical factors of muscle strength. Yeah, relaxation is one of them, activation is one of them, lengthening and shortening. So if you do eccentric, you're doing concentric, don't forget to do relaxation, like I said with those push-ups. Lay on the ground, relax your muscles, push back up. That's interesting. I'm going to try that. Evolution of humans, concurrent cerebellum and cerebral development. There was this one study I read with this. It was really dope, but it suggested that the development of like tools and everything helped develop our thinking, and which means like the develop of fine motor skills helps our thinking, and or is it the development of our thinking helps fine motor skills, or is it improving fine motor skills helps our thinking? You know what I mean? Like is it such a direct relationship? Interesting thought. Peripheral neuromuscular activation, weight loss by the math. This is what I was saying, like you have 1 million in one of your calf muscles, 2 million if you count the nerve and the fiber, muscle fiber. And now we're talking about cells. And so the more those are activated, the more like your body will maintain the ability of those things to get to where they need to be. Like nutrition where it needs to get to be, among the cells and everything. Yeah, it's dope. It's simple. Go kickboxing classes, go learn a new sport, be bad at it. It's going to take you like 9 months to get good at it. But remember, we're talking about a 3-year body. Because in 3 years, you'll never have to worry about this shit again. You'll just be on track. Which is why this stuff is supposed to be like, I think should be in high school. We should really learn about this stuff in PE. It should be in 3 years. Skilled neuromuscular activation and cognitive facilitation. So that was the same thing here. I was kind of saying at the end, where I was like, okay, so if we are, one thing to know is like the center of your brain that regulates emotions is also near or part of the system that regulates movement control and coordination. And so as you learn new skills, you might be able to facilitate that area in general, and so you'll be able to hopefully process emotions better. You might be habituated on a certain kind of activation, but it should work. Excuse me, but I'm going to eat this burrito because I also have to go to a birthday party later. But I wanted to kind of get this video out because this is my last day off before the deadline, and so I was just trying to get something out there. I might be able to wake up early tomorrow, probably get those 1-minute tries in, but we'll see. 4AT pathways. This is different now because of the lactate shuffle. I don't know if I'm going to call them these 4 pathways, because it seems to be another one. Well, I think that's part of anaerobic glycolysis, actually, where they use the lactate as energy across other cells. It's very interesting. I'll have to expand on it more. Protein uptake limitations and considerations. So you can eat whatever. I mean, you're a person. You're your own individual. Eat whatever you want, how you want. The study was that people ate 5 grams of protein, 10 grams of protein, 20 grams of protein, and 40 grams of protein, and they all did similar, like basically the same exercises, as far as I remember. And the ones between protein and the ones between 40 were exactly the same, which doesn't suggest that the more you take, the better you get. It just suggests that there's a limit, and if you take more, you're going to make sure you cover it, but then you'll be going through your protein twice as fast, unless you're getting the whey isolate because you're lactose intolerant, in which case you give 40 grams of protein, your body uptakes at 20, and then you're trying to kind of get more balanced. So like, you see what I mean? Like, you got to understand the materials involved and how the physiology works, because that's just an important consideration to make. 20 grams of protein and a 3-to-4 ratio with carbohydrates is maximum facilitation for protein uptake. And so if we base our diets around our body's ability to create or to use protein, since that's such a fundamental building tool, then it's 20 grams of protein every 3 to 4 hours, with about 100, like 75 to 100 grams of carbs, and then as much fat that would be needed, which is about like, I think mine was 90 grams a day. So then if you're just put in 30 grams across 3 meals, or divide it even further, but then that's it. That's the math for nutrition, based on this protein uptake limit. And so ideally, that would give you the best body with the least amount of extra nutrients, so you're least likely to gain weight, your body's going to be maximally saturated, and you might think, oh, the more muscle I have, well, the bigger you are. I can see that limit probably going up to like 25 grams, but your body's really good at using that shit. Like, shoot, even if you were like Giannis, I think 25 grams is reasonable. Maybe 30. Like, you're still not hitting 40, 50 by serving. Like a sitting. Crazy. Like a 30 might still be too much. But you can still eat a giant steak when you want to, though. You know, like, don't let that stop you. Like, this is just for like maximum streamline of nutrition. Like, I got a burrito, I got pretzels. It's a homemade burrito, but it's still a lot of rice and carbs I'm getting right now. This is definitely, I'm having like probably 5 to 6 times the protein and with these carbs, but I just enjoy food. So let's see what else we got. Trepanation and false ideas of modern and historic medical history. I'm not going to argue with this fucking song. Okay, hush. Sorry. That's why I try to do instrumental, so I wouldn't have too many voices going. Alright, so trepanation, false ideals of modern historic medical history. That's kind of the idea behind like why exercise science is fucked up. It's like we don't really have an understanding. We think that people got splinters in the past and then they died. Like, that's not how it worked. Like, they were pretty savvy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, after 3 months of traveling, eventually you might run out of citrus fruit. But, I mean, that shit happens. And so, it wasn't planned on it. Like, people understood, like, basics for a while, I think. I mean, that's what the Healing Hand book is about, which was really dope. It talks about how, like, in ancient times, trepanation was common practice. But, like, go to the 1800s with trepanation, and like 90% of people died. They did that shit before society existed, before history, pre-history. Trepanation. We are in 1800, 20,000 years later, 10,000 years later, at least 10,000 years later, and we're killing people. That if we would have went back in time and they would have performed the operation, it would have been a success. Like, we have false ideas of how great we are by being modern. I want to say that again. For that head surgery, you would go to the 1800s, you would die. If you go farther back in time, you would find a better surgeon. Like, that's how we're getting with exercise science. It's like, we're not doing it right. If you go back in time, they would talk about it a lot better than we talk about it today. that's why people went to Greece, was for like their exercise science. Oh wait, and that they were like fucking incredibly brilliant? That's crazy. And I'm talking about Athenian Greece too. They didn't go to Sparta for physical therapy, you know what I mean? Wow. This is like the Nordic studies where it says you don't want all your training way up there. So you want 10% of your training above VT2, which is like the high intensity interval training. 10% above that. The kind of ventilator threshold training we were talking about before, I guess would be considered either be zone 1 or zone 2 training. Because like we're not trying to really max out the system or put a great deal of stress on it. Very close between those lower ones. And it's like 70% and 30%. I think it's easy enough, like with the parameters that you're not trying to get your heart rate up. I think it's zone 1. But if you're trying to get your heart rate up on every single run, maybe zone 2. There might be principles for either one. But I think the first one is better. The second one might be better for short term. The need for answers now is greater than the need for correct answers. This one I wrote a little while ago. Like when I was like, I'm glad I kind of waited. Just because I was writing like this versus how I was writing with the other ones. So I'm glad I kind of waited. So, I worked for LA Fitness and in their sales program. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it, but I can just say that that's stupid. This is America. Their program, like because if you would have sat down with any sales professional, you would have heard this pitch. So it was given to me by my manager. I think it was given to him by the executives of LA Fitness. And it's, quote, circuit training programs don't work. And then, so here's all my evidence against that. From 2013 to 1994, like, are you kidding me? Especially, like, this indicates that aerobic circuit weight training program is an effective way to improve cardiovascular fitness, body composition, and muscular strength in college-age women. Hello? Are you kidding me? Like, you could literally just quote this study and you have a marketing technique. Like, no, we do circuit training. Why wouldn't you do circuit training? Circuit training is highly effective. That's why CrossFit is so big. Maybe that's why you're trying to create these arguments, but you didn't know what the fuck you were talking about. 2013 lost LA Fitness. Damn, bro. Like, how am I supposed to be a professional like this? Like, maybe you've gotten better, but I also know no one has. So, like, maybe you're not lying as much, but you don't have better training. Because no one does. Because I have to tell you all about it. That's not true. There's a lot of really good strength and conditioning coaches out there, like master strength and conditioning coaches, who know their shit. And I ain't gonna hate on them. And there's other people too who are studying, coming up, and realizing things. And it's like, and there are people just trying to get out there and do their job, but they understand like some of this stuff just is like it's not being taught right. And so that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to fix. Big lesson. No one trains trainers. Nobody. There's this one company I thought would be cool, OPEX, but they don't, because they try to like coach you through it, like talk to you about it, but their training program is straight garbage. Like you will have to unlearn so much bad information. Don't go to OPEX. Go to ACE. Go get a certification somewhere else. You'll at least have good information available, even though they won't teach you how to use it right. It's all too complicated right now. And conceptualizing motor pool learning, so like this is skill development, but it goes farther than that, because it's like how you sit is like how your body conditions itself to sit later on. So how you move, how you train. You do one type of exercise one type of way, your body's going to get really good at being at that posture and doing that exercise under those conditions. So you want to understand that your body pulls stuff together so that way you can like open it up and like do more with it, you know? Like it's kind of like, you know, you want to be open to new experiences, but in like a physical skill kind of way. You know, it's really just good all around advice. Exercise and disease, the ultimate form of medicine and buffer states. Exercise is by far the best thing to facilitate healthy bodily activity. It's the ultimate form of medicine. Like, I'm not the only one saying that. A lot of people say that. Buffer states are essentially physiological states that we can create to help the processing of like a pathogen such as COVID. So like my theory about COVID-19 and everything on that training, that's I would consider that a buffer state. Like we're trying to induce a buffer state. Get everything locked and loaded. There you go. Now when you're hit, you buffer. Not just buffer, but you got a buffer. That's my. And that's it. That's my last slide. I'm very conflicted because I want this information to get out there. There's a lot of stuff I could share, but like other people can steal it for their own commercial gain, which is like, eventually we'll create a product that everyone wants and is helpful. But I'm the one who's put in all this effort, so I want to make my products. So you create your own stuff. And then there's the idea of like brainstorming really causes directional focus. So it's like, how much do I really want to work with people, and how much do I want to build my own stuff? I really want to work with people because this stuff needs to get out there, but you need to be fairly compensated. So if you would like to invest in a gym concept, hit me up. I'll be amazed if you watched it this far. If you would like to work with me on any of your projects, let me know about the project. I'll be very interested in working with you. It's just about fair compensation. If you would like to help people survive COVID, encourage them to learn tennis, baseball, basketball, throwing the ball around, learning new skills, practicing a martial art, go out for kickboxing, maybe virtual, but what you gonna do? Practice relaxing, for sure. You can have action, and you can be hyped up. You gotta be able to bring it back. Start again, and then react again. And relax again. React again, and relax again. See what happens. But I'm gonna be trying on this stuff, man. Like, I'm gonna try and create some products and stuff. Like, I got some stuff I'm trying to code right now that'll just be useful. And I could put it up on GitHub, and if you're code savvy and you want to get into physical exercise, work together on stuff. Help build some shit. I gotta go to a birthday, but think on it. If you want to invest, if you want to work together, because there's a big difference between you putting in your eyes to words on paper and doing analysis and doing translations and doing readings and summaries and reviews and analyses. And there's a difference between production, getting money, and design, obviously better video editing. There's a lot of other small projects too, big and small and big, and nothing's too small. And the big stuff, we got it. We could handle it. I bet you. Alright. That was fun.